Imagine armies marching across continents, driven by faith and fury. These weren't just wars. They were epic journeys that shaped the world. We're about to uncover 10 astonishing truths about the Crusades, stories of courage, betrayal, and consequences that still echo today. Prepare to rethink everything you thought you knew. Which historical event do you think had the biggest impact on the modern world? The call to arms and the First Crusade. Imagine a world where a desperate plea echoed across Europe, igniting a firestorm of religious fervor and military ambition. This was the dawn of the Crusades, a period of history unlike any other. The spark that ignited this monumental undertaking wasn't a single event, but a complex tapestry of religious devotion, political maneuvering, and a growing sense of unease. A powerful call to arms emerged from the East, painting a picture of holy sites under threat and a desperate need for aid. This call wasn't just a whisper, it was a thunderous proclamation delivered by Pope Urban II at the Council of Clermont in 1095. He spoke of pilgrims facing hardship and violence on their journeys to Jerusalem, a city sacred to Christians. His words were charged with emotion, painting vivid images of suffering and appealing directly to the knights and nobles of Europe. He offered a powerful incentive, remission of sins, a promise of spiritual reward for those who took up the cross. This wasn't merely a suggestion, it was a divine mandate, a chance to secure a place in heaven. The response was astonishing. Knights, peasants, and even women, driven by faith and the promise of salvation, began to prepare for a perilous journey. This wasn't an organized, well-equipped army in the modern sense. Instead, it was a wave of humanity, fueled by conviction. Many sold their homes and belongings, eager to answer the Pope's call. The First Crusade became a movement of the people, a testament to the profound influence of religious belief in medieval society. It was a bold, audacious undertaking, a journey into the unknown with the highest possible stakes. This initial surge of fervor, known as the People's Crusade, saw large numbers of ordinary folk, often poorly armed and provisioned, set out ahead of the more organized military forces. Their journey was fraught with peril, facing hunger, disease, and attacks from hostile populations long before they reached the Holy Land. Their tragic fate underscored the immense challenges that lay ahead for all who would embark on this sacred mission. What truly drove so many to abandon their lives for such a dangerous quest? A holy war's brutal reality. The call to arms for the Crusades sounded like a divine mission, a path to salvation for sinful souls. Yet, the reality on the ground was a stark, bloody contrast. Imagine soldiers, driven by faith and promises of heavenly reward, marching thousands of miles, facing starvation, disease, and the harshness of unfamiliar lands. For many, the journey itself was a brutal ordeal, far from the glorious battle they might have envisioned. The fervor that fueled these expeditions often devolved into sheer desperation and violence. When the Crusaders finally reached their destinations, the promised land was not always met with open arms. Instead, they encountered fortified cities and determined defenders. Sieges were common, prolonged affairs that tested the limits of human endurance. Starvation gnawed at both attackers and defenders. Disease spread like wildfire through crowded camps. The psychological toll of constant warfare, the sights and sounds of relentless bloodshed, undoubtedly left deep scars on those who participated. It was a far cry from the pious pilgrimage often preached. The sack of cities like Jerusalem was a horrific testament to the brutal reality. Accounts describe scenes of unimaginable carnage, where religious fervor twisted into savage cruelty. The lines between soldier and civilian blurred, and the sanctity of holy sites meant little in the heat of battle. The pursuit of divine justice morphed into a quest for plunder and power, leaving a trail of devastation. This dark side of the Crusades is often overshadowed by the grand narratives of faith and heroism, but it is a crucial part of understanding their true impact. Beyond the battlefield, the consequences rippled outwards. The immense cost in human lives, both for the Crusaders and the populations they encountered, was staggering. Resources were drained, societies were disrupted, and a deep chasm of mistrust and animosity was forged between different cultures and religions. The ideal of a holy war, meant to purify and protect, ultimately led to widespread suffering and lasting bitterness. What do you think is the most surprising aspect of this brutal reality? The Crusades' lasting impact on the world. The echoes of the Crusades still shape our world in surprising ways. Think about the intense rivalries and distrust that simmered between the Christian West and the Islamic East. This historical friction, ignited by those medieval wars, didn't just disappear with the last knight's return. It laid the groundwork for centuries of misunderstanding, influencing political relationships and cultural perceptions that we grapple with even today. The way different cultures viewed each other was profoundly altered, creating lasting impressions that are hard to shake. Consider the incredible exchange of knowledge that occurred. While the Crusaders were often driven by religious fervor, they also encountered advanced civilizations in the Middle East. They brought back not just tales of battles, but also new ideas in science, mathematics, medicine, and architecture. This influx of information helped fuel the European Renaissance, a period of immense intellectual and artistic growth. So, the very foundations of modern Western thought owe a debt to these encounters, however violent they may have been. Furthermore, the Crusades significantly impacted trade routes. As European powers sought to supply their armies and establish stronger connections with the East, new trade networks flourished. Spices, silks, and other valuable goods became more accessible in Europe, changing diets and lifestyles. This economic expansion not only enriched European kingdoms, but also laid some of the early foundations for global commerce, linking distant lands in ways that were previously unimaginable. The desire for Eastern goods became a powerful driver of exploration and economic development. Even the very concept of holy war and the idea of a unified Christendom against an external, other, have roots in this era. While the term crusade is specific to those medieval campaigns, the underlying sentiment of religious conflict and the justification of violence in the name of faith has unfortunately echoed through history in various forms. This historical precedent can still be seen in how religious and political groups frame their conflicts. What lasting impact of the Crusades do you think is most felt in today's world? Forgotten battles and untold stories. The grand narratives of the Crusades often overshadow countless smaller conflicts, skirmishes that never made it into the history books. Think of the Siege of Tyre, a prolonged and brutal affair where defenders, outnumbered and facing starvation, miraculously held out against a massive Crusader army. They used innovative tactics, even employing Greek fire, a potent incendiary weapon that terrified their attackers. This wasn't a single glorious charge, but a grinding test of endurance and ingenuity, a story of desperate survival against overwhelming odds. Then there are the lesser-known Crusades, like the Children's Crusade, a tragic and poorly understood event. While often romanticized as a tale of innocent faith, historical accounts suggest it was more likely a desperate movement of the poor and disenfranchised, perhaps even a form of mass migration driven by famine and religious fervor. The fate of these children remains a somber mystery, a testament to the complex and often brutal realities behind the grand pronouncements of holy war. Many likely perished from starvation, disease, or were sold into slavery, their dreams of reaching the Holy Land shattered. Consider the fierce resistance encountered in regions far from the famed battlefields of Jerusalem. In Andalusia, a series of smaller crusades, often intertwined with the Reconquista, saw Christian kingdoms battling Moorish rulers for centuries. These weren't always clear-cut religious wars. They were often brutal power struggles with shifting alliances and shifting loyalties, where local lords fought for land and influence as much as for faith. The battles were often localized, fought in mountain passes and dusty plains, their outcomes shaping the very fabric of Iberian identity. Even within the major crusades, countless individual acts of bravery and despair went unrecorded. The story of a single knight defending a crumbling outpost against overwhelming numbers, or a group of pilgrims banding together to survive a treacherous journey, these are the human moments lost in the sweep of grand strategy. These forgotten battles and untold stories reveal a more nuanced picture of the Crusades, one filled with hardship, ingenuity, and the raw courage of ordinary people caught in extraordinary times. What other hidden stories do you think the Crusades hold? So, we've seen how these epic journeys, meant to reclaim holy lands, led to centuries of conflict and changed the world forever. From fierce battles to surprising alliances, the Crusades were more than just wars. They were pivotal moments that shaped cultures and beliefs. What do you think was the most unexpected outcome of the Crusades? Let us know in the comments below. Next time, we're diving into the shadowy world of medieval spies and secret codes.